Welcome back to View from Brussels. My name is Brandy Miller. Today in the studio, I'm delighted to welcome a member of the European Parliament, Nicolás González Casares.
Hello.
Thank you for being here, Nicholas.
Thank you to you for this interview.
I want to jump straight into the topic as we have a variety of policy areas we're going to touch on today. You're known as one of the leading voices on energy, climate, and health policy, and you've often argued that Europe's future competitiveness will depend on the choices it makes today. I want to ask you bluntly, do you believe Europe can afford its own ambitions?
I think that our ambition that was in this case decarbonization, fight against climate change, is not succeeding at the pace that we want. I mean, in the previous term, we worked very hard in order to build the European Green Deal. That was the exact path for decarbonization and competitiveness for Europe. And now other forces are trying to undermine
Hmm.
this idea. And I think that they are mistaken because we can increase our competitiveness through decarbonization, through electrification, and at the same time combat and trying to fight against climate change. That is one of the crises that we are facing that is also always there. It's going to be with us until the end of the century and even beyond. So it's time to fight against climate change, but it's time to believe in Europe through decarbonization. And I think not all the actors in Europe agree on that.
Within that, and because that was a point that is often a bit criticized at the moment, is the EU put on the pedestal its Green Deal, its green ambitions, and now in the wake of crisis and also energy crisis, that we see that falling back a bit. So, do you believe that the Europe is properly managing its strategy of or taking the right pivots?
You know, when you have a strategy, the best way to proceed is to continue on this strategy. Sometimes we can discuss the rim of the way that you proceed in some exact points of the discussion. But the fact is that the West crisis and the Ukraine crisis, the Ukraine energy crisis, because the war provoked by Russia, we have seen that always we trust in fossil fuels, we have a problem.
Hmm.
And it's not only climate change, it's about our dependency. Europe doesn't have fossil fuels. We all agree that we don't have fossil fuels. So we have to find other sources of energy that are autonomous, that can help in increase our competitiveness. And of course, it's time to speed up
Hmm.
the decarbonization because reduce our CO2 emissions is also increase our energy independence. And finally, we are very dependent in energy sources coming last term from Russia. Now we are switching to US. And as far as I can see, US is not the best friend that we had in the past.
And do you see perhaps the tone around pursuing climate ambition changing and versus being something positive as more of a threat at the moment? Because that's what's kind of in the headlines. And you've also argued that countries who have invested most heavily in decarbonization have also suffered the least from the recent volatility. Maybe you can elaborate and unpack a bit what you mean with that and how we should be viewing climate ambition.
Not only in chemical, fossil fuels are volatile, are
Hmm.
also volatile when it comes to economy. And relying on fossil fuels is increase our exposure to geopolitical issues that we are seeing now that are contradictory with our interests in Europe. That's why I really believe that fighting against climate change is also a way to reduce this dependence, to really believe in our energy sources, that in the end, wind, sun, the water that we have are the cheapest way to produce energy. And we always need energy for any part of our economy. Without energy independence, we will increase the damage that others can cause to Europe. It's also about security. It's
Hmm.
competitiveness, security, and of course, affordability,
Hmm.
because renewable energy sources are affordable. And all the technologies that we have to trust are more affordable than relying fossil fuels.
Do you see Europe capable at the moment of delivering on these ambitions of diversifying its energy supplies or energy sources?
Diversify is good, it's a good idea, but always taking into account that the real objective is decarbonization.
Hmm.
You mentioned before, there are different countries, there are many countries that really believe in this decarbonization path.
Yeah.
You can see electricity prices, for example, in Spain, Portugal, Sweden, Denmark. They really believe, those countries, that electrification and renewable energy sources are a way to increase their competitiveness. In the other hand, we had Italy with prices above 200 euros megawatt that are not affordable prices. Why? Because they still rely too much on gas. But in this case, in the electricity bills, it's very clear that if we increase renewable energy sources, we are less dependent on gas, fossil gas, when it comes to electricity bills, so we can reduce the prices that households pay for that. I mean, not only households.
I was going to mention because AI is my next topic.
AI, but it's true that in AI and the use of energy is controversial.
Could you speak about this controversy a bit? That where we're at now with the electrification and in the age of AI, on the one hand, Europe wants to be future forward with its ambitions, but also it costs energy. So, how do you see Europe being able to afford this?
I really believe that the energy side of artificial intelligence and the development of data centers will play a crucial role in the discussion in the next months and years,
Hmm.
in the energy discussion. I mean, why? You can imagine a dinner. You have your table prepared for two or three guests,
Hmm.
and suddenly another one appears. I mean, we had to electrify and decarbonize housing sector, industry, mobility, and finally appears an unexpected guest that wants to sit on the table, that is artificial intelligence and data centers development. Oh, I don't have enough food, I don't have enough plates for that. We have to cook more food and give them a position. So this is the real challenge we are facing today. We have to accommodate this big development, but always taking into account one idea that for me is important. Artificial intelligence should be intelligent in the
Hmm.
use of energy. I cannot accept that the artificial intelligence of the future will be stupid
Hmm.
in the use of energy. So we have to improve energy efficiency when it comes to data centers. Also, we need good planning of data centers, how
Hmm.
to accommodate that also at territorial level. And we cannot forget one thing. We were spoken about strategic autonomy and reduce our dependence from outside. I really don't know if Europe develops data centers dedicated for American companies to use AI models that are built
Hmm.
in the US, what do we win? Are we winning something on that?
Hmm.
Because we are dedicating our resources, electricity, water. And of course, there is another risk, is the use of gas. There is a risk of gasification of this sector in the next years, and it's something that we have to avoid. It's already happening in US. The use of fossil fuels to dedicate this electricity to give the resources needed for data centers. And I think that there is a growing threat also to our path to decarbonization.
I wanted to ask you about where do we draw the line between cutting red tape and also weakening environmental
That's
safeguards?
why we have to find a balance.
Yeah.
Balance, you will obtain balance through regulation,
Hmm.
not by the regulating, because could be like like the jungle. We cannot we cannot let them to act as in the jungle, because in this jungle always the biggest eat the smaller.
Hmm.
I mean, you know, the Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and the big AI platforms that are being created now are very powerful. So we have to regulate this in a manner to give them equal opportunities to add in this ecosystem. And finally, how to provide them with energy. It's
Mhm.
important. I mean, uh, as I said before, we cannot rely on fossil fuels. We have to speed up renewables. So I think that we need additional renewables
Mhm.
for this big development. And of course, energy efficiency when it comes to the use of electricity, but water, an efficient use of water, because water scarcity is important. One thing that I really believe the Commission has to do in the next months in order to
Mhm.
present their initiative and then in the Parliament to legislate is how to how to better plan this massive development.
Mm.
Because we need planning, spatial
Yeah.
planning. These connections for data centers and artificial intelligence are competing also for grids
Mhm.
with traditional industries. If you want to decarbonize a steel plant that is massive, creating jobs,
Yeah.
they can reduce their ability to be connected because they have a competition with a big data centers that is only creating 5 jobs.
Mhm.
So I think that we have to be convinced that this new infrastructure is going to create also jobs in Europe, not in the other side of the Atlantic.
Yeah, that is quite a big risk. And as you're speaking about the data centers and infrastructure, remind me of an example I heard of planning smarter too, in the sense that having new buildings where data centers are located beneath them, so it's able to use the heating in order for the building to be more efficient. So I do, from what I'm understanding, is that we have to be smarter and more intentional when it comes to planning, as well as the electrification and climate ambitions of the EU.
If you put an eye in the things that are happening in the US, is that you can see that the bills are increasing because the price of electricity and the cost of infrastructure.
Mhm.
So they are having problems in some part of the US. We had to avoid these problems here, and we can do it by planning, but also being very, very smart in the way that we afford this development for the citizens,
Mhm.
because we cannot forget in the end citizens living on the territories. When a data center is planning close to your home or your house, you start to think about the use of water, for example.
Mhm.
And I have agriculture, and I have my needs also for my industries or for my home,
Yeah.
and this is also important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just say one last thing is I saw as well a map of the United States and how they were spreading out the data centers versus in Europe. So, do you have any other concerns about geography playing a
No,
role?
no, I have geography will play a role because where the resources are, the place the better place to connect data centers. But the main problem will be how to develop in a fair manner.
Mm.
I mean, what is happening in the US, there are already massive increasing in some states and not in the others, and there is an imbalance. But there is an opportunity also to check where are they creating jobs.
Mm.
Are they creating jobs in these states or in Silicon Valley in California?
Yeah.
Because this is an example we can take. Are data centers creating jobs? Are data centers creating a good environmental situation for a new digital infrastructure or
Mhm.
digital companies? They are attracting talent to these places, or they are putting the talent in another places.
Mm.
This is an answer that we need also, and the experience of US can help us to take some decisions.
To help diversify and to spread it out more equitably.
Equity and, of course, in a balance that taking into account all the actors
Yeah.
in the industrial ecosystem.
Well, thank you. We covered quite robustly data centers, electrifications, and I do want to turn to a topic that is very fond of your hearts from my understanding, and that
Yes.
is healthcare. As we both know, behind every policy debate, there are people. Let's focus a bit in this moment on people and namely on rare diseases. We know that more than 30 million Europeans live with rare diseases. Many are facing years without diagnosis as well as access to specialized care. As rapporteur for the European Parliament's Rare Disease Action Plan, what are the most important changes you're pushing for in this report? It could be either for you as rapporteur or you as Nicolas. But
It's
maybe let
because
our audience know your
there is a
position.
big coincidence here. I mean, you said that there are more than 30 million people suffering rare
Yeah.
diseases in Europe. So they are not so rare. They have very different diseases, but rare diseases are not so rare, are affecting millions of people.
Hmm.
So this kind of aggregation that Euro represents is very important when it comes the way we have to manage this rare disease. I mean, in Malta, you can have two people or one with some rare diseases, but 20 or 30 in Italy or 40 in Spain, whatever. But the reality is that without an European approach, will be very difficult to give them solutions.
Hmm.
First, they are very underdiagnosed, rare diseases.
Yeah.
We are suffering that. And the main problem starts in the moment of your birth, in the moment of the newborn, because depending on your postal code, you can have very different screening test access,
Hmm.
but not only difference across member states, even into the member states, we have very massive difference. I mean, there are regions or countries with 10 tests for newborn screening of rare
Hmm.
diseases and others with 50. This difference is unfair. You cannot say to a family, to a baby, that you have a rare disease under diagnosis because you didn't have the test
Hmm.
when your mom gave birth. This is completely unfair, and I think that is not acceptable from an European perspective. And on the other hand, we need more treatment for them. And it's true that we can increase the access to treatments if we tackle this on a European level, not only from the perspective of national perspective,
Hmm.
and then give them the access to these medicines because sometimes are very expensive.
Hmm.
So European approach could help them also. There are European reference networks that are a way to collaborate in the between the patients, physicians, all the ecosystem, and we have to give them more abilities. We have to give them more funding. That's why a new action plan is good,
Hmm.
but I'm calling to the Commission for a regulation,
Mm.
for an European regulation for rare diseases. I think is the best manner to set standards. For example, when I said before newborn screening,
Yeah.
will be nice to have this standard and will massively increase the access to diagnosis, treatment, and of course, new treatment because research and
And
development is
sharing the
also,
knowledge,
yeah,
yes.
combining this with European health data space will be nice also.
You are calling, as you mentioned, from this to go from an action plan to regulation. What do you see as the biggest political hurdle from achieving this? As your maybe your recommendation of how you could move forward as well.
First, one thing I have learned in this parliament that you have to be ambitious.
Yes.
You don't have to be, oh no, this is enough. No, never is enough. And when it comes to rare diseases, it's clearly true because an action plan could be nice, but we need more. And what is more when it comes to EU legislation? Regulation. We need
Hmm.
a regulation in place. That won't solve the regulation by itself all the problems of people suffering rare diseases. But first, they will feel that they are taking into account when it comes to European institutions. Um, Believe me, I'm not having very great troubles in the parliament into this discussion. There is a big consensus
Hmm.
among EU groups in the European Parliament. And I want to create this consensus. I prefer to combine our shared objectives and give a strong signal to the Commission. Probably one we can have more than 600 people voting in favor of this initiative. And can you imagine Commission saying no to that?
What type of message would that send to the
Yeah,
people?
because we have been elected.
Hmm.
600 people or more voting in favor of that is knocking on the door of the Commission that they cannot say, we are not listening that. No, no, they had to listen us.
Well, thank you, Nicholas, for this really broad conversation, but
Thank
also
you so
very
much.
insightful. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.